Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Mendez, host of the Roundtable. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news. Señores oyentes de Úsala Media, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda de Roundtable. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Dani Ramos controlando la máquina digital y nuestro invitado especial, John Duffin. Good morning.
Hola, Fernando, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, gracias. ¿De qué hablamos hoy? Tenemos muchas cosas para hablar.
Mil gracias.
Sí,
bueno.
For anybody who lives under a rock, doesn't know John Duffin, he's a voice expert. He's the voice. So if you need voice services, he's your man.
I'm grateful.
Fantastic.
Fernando, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate that.
I'm always happy to have you. You know, this is open to you anytime you want.
Absolutely my pleasure.
We are very proud to have you here. Well, we have a lot. On a day where there are two new items from the Supreme Court. And so you mentioned one, I mentioned the other one. I was flabbergasted by one of the news about they refused to hear a case that, well, they dodged the bullet before. The Supreme Court did. Not wanting to hear anything about gay rights and religious freedom. And this time they did it again. So a lawsuit that this woman has because an establishment refused to serve gay people, and there was a lawsuit, and the Supreme Court once more refuses to get involved. What do you think about that?
Well, finding it interesting, and as a gay man, I'm not minding this ruling in the sense that they're going to leave intact. If I understand correctly, the court's decision is leaving intact the state court's rulings against the florist. So if I'm understanding it correctly, they are saying that they are not going to intercede, and that Washington state law is saying that you can't discriminate and that it is unconstitutional. And obviously, for me, I support that 1,000%. So at least in this instance, it appears they're not going to overturn a decision which to me is fair and right. So stepping back is one thing, but they're not going to, again, muddle or wreck a decision that just makes sense.
It's a two-edged sword, you know, whether or
Agreed.
not because if they decide, they may decide the wrong way, and so it's better not to know what they're thinking right now.
Well, Fernando, you're bringing up a good point, because the fact of the matter is that look, that happened in an opposite situation. That Masterpiece Cake Shop that wouldn't bake the cake for the gay wedding, they also got out of the way of that and allowed that bakery to discriminate. And so I understand what you're saying, that there should be an instance of stepping up or making some sort of a decision when it gets that far. So right now it appears that, and as you said, the double-edged sword part is true. It appears that they're going to, in essence, just wash their hands and allow the states to handle it. Yeah, double-edged sword indeed.
And the other decision, which is the one you brought up, because you were also surprised at that.
Sadly disappointed is what I am. Not surprised. Sadly disappointed that there are systems that appear to be getting put in place that are going to impact the midterms next year. And that's frightening to me, of between the crazy one more time audits of lies and fake news and setting up provisions to make voting more difficult. And that to me is senseless. That if anything, systems should be getting put in place and continue to be put in place to make voting easier for and they're not. And so the Arizona situation absolutely is alarming to me in regards to the future ramifications.
Yeah, well, John, I have been addressing this whole issue for forever.
Yeah.
Since Trump decided that he won,
Mm-hmm.
and that Biden is not the president.
Right.
All this is based, because this is what I have said, and I have read it in so many places. This is all based in the big lie.
Oh, 1,000%. I now, for me personally, and I have a lot of friends that actually support that. Here's where where the line is drawn for me. I will gladly debate opinions, such as I believe in this or I believe in that. Whether you are liberal, conservative, I am liberal, and as a Democrat, I'll debate opinions. I will no longer debate false statements. None. I shut them down. And to me, with the big lie, I just shut it down. It is. I won't allow this to be treated as an opinion. Now, I'm one person, so I don't have the clout that these courts have. But for me, I won't allow a conversation anymore that supports that. I just will shut it down.
You're right, and I think I like a word that I have known for a long time, but I don't use it. I don't like to use like big words. I want people to understand what I'm saying. But there is a time and a place for them. And I just heard Barack Obama use it recently.
What was the word?
Epistemology, which has to do, as you know, with knowledge. And I have the definition here so that I don't make mistakes saying what it is. The theory of knowledge, especially with regards to its methods, validity, and scope. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion. In other words, if you're going to say something, it can be your opinion. You could be wrong. Or it could be a belief that you can also say, this is why I believe in this. And so Obama was using that in the context of this discussion about Trump winning and his people following him and justifying that opinion that he won and lacking complete epistemological sense. In other words, it has no basis in reality. And that's why I like that word, because sometimes words say exactly what it is. And in this case, they make totally no sense, because what you said is true, and this is what brought it to mind, that you don't argue with people who absolutely speak another language in reality. They do not recognize your argument as valid. They just refuse to discuss with logic.
Right. Like, to tie in. So if someone says to me, I don't like the fact that gas prices are high right now. I don't like the border policies that are currently in place. That's a conversation I'm willing to have. That's there because they're based upon tangible facts. I want to have a conversation because I believe the election was rigged. I'm like, no, just no. No. It's not an opinion. It's a flat out false statement. I don't debate false statements anymore. I just won't. I won't entertain the bandwidth. I cut the conversations now cold. I didn't, but anymore, I won't even listen to this.
See, you're more eloquent explaining this because I get so upset. I basically lost a couple of friends.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Especially one friend that I invited to dinner and then found out that she was a rabid Republican, not only Republican, a Trumpist. Because there are Republicans that I can argue with, but the Trumpists that hold that line that he won the election and Biden is illegal, and I cannot have a dialogue with them. It just will not happen. No. Especially when this person said, Trump is my hero. He is the best president we ever had. Because now you're expressing an opinion based on nothing, based on a lack of reality.
I would say, it's funny you say that. I have conservative friends. I would want to hear more as to why they feel like he's the best president ever. I would like to just I would keep that conversation for me to allow them to elaborate, because when they get in, because often it does happen, they'll want to come in and add the big lie part. That's when I cut it off, because I want to know what makes him the best president ever. What was done? If you say, well, more jobs, well, that's a debate, right? If you say, low gas prices, well, that's a debate. But if you say, or when you say, because the people wanted him, it's like, no, just no. I love this vantage point. Say the word for me again. You just taught me something.
Epistemology.
Yep, thank you. And I never say the word or I often mispronounce the word. So I love that, because to me, that's the barometer. That is the barometer. Is it a factual conversation?
And I was a student of philosophy and theology, so that word came up often in
right
when you're doing that kind of studies.
Mm-hmm.
But what I always found fascinating about that word and others that
Mm-hmm.
are also probably technically more precise is that they define something that what you want to say. This, in order to have a context in which you can have an argument, a discussion, you have to both have realistic arguments. So you and I can agree or disagree on whether or not cold weather helps you.
Oh, right. I like cold weather. I like warm weather. I like blue. Right. I like red. That's okay. That's, it's often based upon something, but I'm a big believer, and I'm thinking of a couple of people in particular that are in my life, friends, and I respect them, and they are absolutely on the opposite side of the fence, but they come where the line for me is this. If you're coming from curiosity, like my vantage point is, I am no more correct than you, and you is anybody. My vote means no more than yours. Right. If someone told me you're going to have to vote for so-and-so, I'd laugh in their face. And when the votes were threatened to be challenged, it was back right after the November election. That was the one area I'm like, I'll fight for this. This is one avenue where I will fight, because everybody's vote is equal. But again, if we're talking opinion, I get that. Not everybody has to like Joe Biden. I get that. I'm okay with that. He is not flawless. I'm a fan, and I'm really happy with what he's doing, but he's not flawless. And so I'm okay with that. But when you need to throw in false statements, I'm not a fan. And I used to allow them to be. I won't do that anymore. That's fairly recent for me. I won't allow that anymore.
Well, yeah, that's what happens, because I know what's coming. A friend of mine, a restaurant owner, or a business person, immediately. I mean, he's a Trump, worshiper.
Yeah.
And as soon as I brought up the topic, he said, "Oh yeah, well, look how well Biden is doing at the border." That's what immediately they bring up. So you have to be armed with numbers, and then. Well, the reality of it is, towards the end of the Trump administration, there were more people crossing the border and being arrested. And they always say Obama, because Obama did deport a lot of people, 2.5 million. But people were coming in droves towards the end of the administration, of the Trump administration.
Everybody knew it too, and everybody knew it. The fact of the matter is, it was the thorn. It was one of the reasons he lost. Was the immigration and the ridiculous policies. That was one of the reasons he lost. And so I believe it was two. It was that and COVID, or were the two main reasons that he didn't take a second term. And I believe it's just simply a matter of, you've got nothing else, so point at immigration. Point at the border. Nothing has really changed. It's not that it's gotten worse. It just hasn't improved, and it was awful. So it's not like Biden gets high grades for this. He doesn't.
No. they have fumbled a couple of things, and I'm shocked that it took the vice president this long to even get involved in it and go to the border and go.
No, I agree. That's what I'm saying. He's not flawless. I'm not thinking he doesn't get a 100% pass in my eyes. But the fact, and that's why I said I'll entertain issue-related debates always. I never said that, and I never felt that Joe Biden is going to be 100% because nobody is.
My other counter argument is there might be more people coming now because there is a more humane policy at the border, and they know their families are not going to be broken up. The children are not going to be ripped away from their mothers. So
exactly, and held in cages. So the fact is, it was a real problem that needed to be like big picture accurately addressed. It still hasn't been. It's still in the observation stage, and that is a problem, right? Figuring roughly 6 months into the administration, now it would be nice to start to hear a little bit more in regards to action. But my reminder to anybody is you're only 6 months into what was a problem. And we have a inherited problem, and you're only 6 months in.
Oh, okay, but here's the other side of that, John.
Right.
This is not a Biden problem. It's
absolutely
not a Democratic problem.
Nope.
Immigration reform is the solution, except that we're never going to get the Republicans to agree to immigration reform.
Oh, or much of anything. We're
going to stop here. We're going to take a very brief break, and we'll come back in a minute. Estamos en la mesa redonda. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Danny Ramos controlando la máquina digital, and John Duffin is our guest. Regresamos en un momento. Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Méndez, host of the Roundtable. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news. Señoras y señores de USA La Media, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Danny Ramos, controlando la máquina digital, y nuestro invitado especial, John Duffin. Bueno, John, this is a good example of why, like sometimes I have discussions with people, internal discussions in our company about whether or not we do half hour or 1 hour. And this is one reason why I realize sometimes I need more time, not less time. Anyway, this is a good example. There are some days where you feel that the thing is dragging, maybe if I'm alone, although I try to make it interesting always.
I know.
But this is an obvious example of why I need more time, not less. Anyway.
I like it.
So, Nancy Pelosi appointing Liz Cheney to the January 6th committee to investigate what happened on that day, which we all can see every day on video.
Yep.
There's always new videos. Another one just came out. It's always shocking to realize to what extent there was such violence and how lucky we were that these people did not reach the inside and began to beat up and perhaps kill politicians. I don't care if we're Republicans or Democrats. That would have been a horrible crime in this country. So
I actually think it was, to me, a mushroom effect too. That was horrible enough on its own. I mean, just that was plenty. But I also believe what's happening now by appointing these committees and not letting this go is you're taking steps, hopefully preventative steps, so this doesn't then permeate to state levels. I'm still not convinced that you're not going to see more like next year. I'm not convinced in any way that state capitals won't be at risk. I'm not convinced. So the fact is, to me, to keep this going is important to me, even when you don't have any kind of real Republican support here. I think this is terribly important to keep this going.
I agree with you, John. And here's the worry about the states. You are absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I don't see why the leadership, Republican leadership,
Mm-hmm.
cannot squash the whole idea and say to their followers, to the Republicans in every state, no matter what happened in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
Biden is the president.
Mm-hmm.
We have to support our democratic
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, we're running the risk of upheavals in many states in this country as we approach
Mm-hmm.
the midterm elections.
Mm-hmm.
And more so if we are in the same situation when 2024 comes around.
Mm-hmm. Fernando, I was going to say, at a point. So in my mind, I'm rattling off Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Texas. I would have added Pennsylvania to this too, if you didn't have someone like Josh Shapiro that was literally acting almost as a one-man band and a one-man destroyer force. And thank God for him, because you could have put Pennsylvania in this too with the current configuration, Republican, Democrat. To me, this is really a big deal. So these election provisions, we were talking about Arizona earlier, and Georgia that took place, these provisions that are going up are, to me, another panic situation that's going. So that's why I believe the investigation committee. Now, look, am I thinking anything really is going to come from it? No, I'm not. Even including Liz Cheney, even if Kevin McCarthy did decide to cooperate, and I don't believe he will. But the fact of the matter is, I think to keep it top of mind so it's not forgotten. You're probably not going to get new converts here, right? I don't believe the hardcore Republicans, I don't believe they're going to be like, oh, you know what? You were right after all. I don't believe it, sadly. And that to me is mind-numbing. But you can't let the people that are on the fence decide, oh, you know what? That's past. This isn't past. It's not resolved in my eyes yet.
Yeah, so far there are only a handful of Republicans who are willing to consider the whole idea.
Yeah, let alone, you know what I mean? Just consider, let alone participate.
Exactly. And now Kevin McCarthy came to threaten Republicans who accept the offer from Pelosi to join the committee.
Right.
Well, that makes no sense. He has an opportunity to pick 5 members to this committee.
Sadly, it makes a lot of sense. And it's if you now are, here's a guess. Here's a guy that knows nothing about nothing. But my guess is this. You are a year away. You just keep the drum beating for another year, and you're going to hope beyond hope that you can turn a couple of states. You can change the majority situation. You can bring it back to Republican, and then they can all breathe and keep their jobs and then hope that they have a chance in 2024. My thought is you are taking an incredible, crazy risk, but right now it's the only one they have because there is no other strategy. There is no other plan. There are no other candidates. There's nothing. So you've ridden this horse this far. You only got a year. And you're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to ride this out.
Right. Now, see, they didn't do themselves a favor because by having this cult of personality, because it was Trump, as you remember, had no platform. So he ran just on the strength of his persona, nothing else. No platform. There is nothing that the Republicans were planning to do if they won the election. Right. And all they are doing right now is saying no to anything that Biden wants to do. So they have no proposal. They have nothing that they want to approve. They don't have any plan for the future except be the opposition, be the people who say no to everything that happens.
They don't even have new people. So even if you had new people, to espout this same nonsense, you might put a fresh coat of paint on it. You may put, you don't even have new people. It's the same sorry cast of characters saying the exact same thing. And all you're hoping is that we can sway a few votes. And the way that you do it is make voting restrictions in these battleground states more difficult. So Arizona, now it's harder. Georgia, okay, now it's harder. And you're like, you know what? That might be enough. The scary thing is, it could be.
It is very scary. Absolutely. If it came to the electoral vote, and that's what we're counting on, it could be very scary. So but looking at it from another point of view, they have begun this so early. They have given the Democrats time to get organized, and that would be, shame on you, knowing what's ahead, knowing what the real threat is, and you do nothing.
Yep. And here's right. So this is, I think you are so on point here. And that's why I put a big smile broke on my face, because there is no big secret that's coming. None.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing. And so that. And so every dollar, I remember, so a couple of friends of mine, I remember before November, and it was last November, and I remember them saying, and it was, and I did it, and I would encourage any of your listeners, look, here's how I was encouraged to help. You got a spare dollar, donate it. You got $2, donate it. You don't have to worry about amounts, but get it to the people that in those states that can make a difference. I wound up doing that. Like I said, any pocket change that I had, I would donate it. Because to me, it was the grassroots effort that turned this last time. And it is my sense of what you're saying is shame on all of us if we just sit and take for granted, because there's a lot of work being done by the other side, a lot. And so it's just match the effort. And I believe the circumstances will work okay. I believe it. But you got to at least match their effort. And so that's why it's like, for me, anytime I see it's like, okay, are you going to spend the $5 on a Starbucks coffee or blah, blah, blah? Right now, it's like, just donate it. Just donate it, Yes.
So there's no need to be afraid. Just be prepared.
Go to work. Just get to work.
Democrats proved that it could be done. Look at Georgia. Two Senate seats that were at risk, and the Republicans lost. And that's what Mitch McConnell cannot explain. Why? Tell me why you lost. We know.
Well, we know, right? They were tired of all this, because they were tired of all that. You know what I mean? And it was like, right?
Yeah. And they try by all means, to quash the vote. And so post-election, that's what they have done with the legislation that they have approved everywhere to stop Sunday voting, to say that if you bring water to somebody standing in line, you're
that's a crime. That's a crime. Yep. And that's why it's like, so now here's the thing. It's you're testing the resilience of the voters. I'm going to hold out hope that the reason those states like Georgia turned is because the sheer will of the people that were like, I'm not going to stand for this. I am going to stand here. And if it's 18 hours or whatever, I'm going to stand here. So it is just, I would say, keep stoking the flames of how important this is. It would be incomprehensible to me, right, to think you get this pass for 2 years. I'm talking about next year, and then have it revert back. It just, to me, would be like
exactly.
I couldn't even process that. So to me, it's like, these are good reminders now, because it's like, what's coming, where they're going, they got nothing else. So you can't be complacent. Talk to people, make it clear, and get ready.
Well, John, as we are getting ready to celebrate the birth of this country,
right?
a Jeffersonian democracy that we should keep, we should support, we should maintain.
Yep.
And on the other side of this brief pause, we are going to ask you the big question. Les habla Fernando Méndez aquí desde la mesa redonda. John Duffin is our guest. Danny Ramos controlando la máquina digital. Regresamos en un momento. Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Méndez, host of the Roundtable. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news. Señoras y señores de Úsala Radio, les habla Fernando Méndez. Danny Ramos controlando la máquina digital en la mesa redonda. John Duffin is our guest. And John, I promise you the big question.
Oh my God, what is it?
As we are ready to say happy birthday, America. And I am a citizen by choice. I chose to become an American citizen, and I'm proud of it. And I just saw recently a Britisher, who is very well known in because of sports, Roger Bennett, who's an announcer. He has the men in suits for soccer from Great Britain. He's always giving us updates. He just wrote a book about becoming an American citizen and what it means to him. And so it means a lot to me that I chose to be here. So the big question, John, one of the obstacles standing in the way of a Biden agenda is the filibuster. So people are saying keep it or do away with it. But what do you think?
I have grown increasingly frustrated with the filibuster, increasingly frustrated because I believe that the original intention of it has been abused. So to me right now, I think anything that intentionally stalls or delays for no reason or stops momentum of a conversation, a discussion, a debate, anything like that to me concerns me a great deal because I have not seen instances, maybe there were, where the filibuster has been used in essence to enable additional points to be heard or different perspectives to come in. It to me is treated as a pure stall. So if you're asking me, look, I understand it is a tough question, but I will go on and say I'm really frustrated with the way the filibuster is being used. And for that reason, I'm more inclined to let it go.
Same here. That's my vote. Because I cannot imagine what would have happened to FDR if that had been the case with him, that because of a filibuster, he had been unable to carry out his desire to bring this country back to life.
Right. And as I said, it's I understand if you're seeking more time and you're seeking more time to garner additional information, but to in essence, and I'll imitate, right? And you're speaking and I'm like, la, 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 la. That's what I'm picturing with a filibuster. You're just stalling at this point. You're just stalling. And it's like, have the communications, and especially right now with such a polarized government situation. No, I'm just not a fan. I'm just not a fan.
Yes. Republicans are like children in the playground, covering their ears. I don't want to hear that.
That's it. I don't want to hear it. We're not going to do this. It's always been this way. It's, to me, the definition of pure entitlement. It's been this way. We want to keep it this way. Why? Because we like it this way. And therefore, whether it's a stall, whether it's a lie, whether, it's just insanely wrong. So that's my answer. No.
Yeah, and because the things that Biden needs to do right now, the infrastructure, spend the money on infrastructure.
Right.
That has to be done
Mhm.
because that is the only way that we can support this democracy right now, to have the country have a vibrant economy
Mhm.
that will enable whoever comes up next
Mhm.
running for
A
office.
fighting chance, a legitimate chance to do something. I'll give you an
Exactly.
example. So I, even up until a few days ago, thought of infrastructure. I know what infrastructure is, but the fact of the matter is, when I'm thinking of it in a present tense, like, look, driving in Philadelphia and bouncing all over potholes. That's when I'm thinking of it, right? Well, that's not it. Let me give you another example where it's like, it's horrific, and I don't believe this is a one-off, and it's Miami. That's infrastructure to me. Watching a building literally collapse and kill 150 people, possibly. That's infrastructure. What are you doing to resolve this? You can't tell me that that building is a one-off and that'll be the end. I know that there were warnings. I know there were other situations there, and I'm reading that. But my fear is that's why you must have improved infrastructure, because you are really taking insane risks in terms of just assuming that buildings are fine, everything's fine, everything's going to remain fine. And the fact is, he got that deal passed. Now it's time to implement it. Spend the money and implement it.
I agree. In the context of this Miami building that collapsed, Biden just said that there were the possibility that we could find more people there alive. I wish he wouldn't say that, because it's sort of
Me neither, and I don't know that that's right. Me neither.
This building is a pancake right now, and I don't know.
And it's been several days, and maybe that's so. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, look,
there was no need for that. No. It's enough that he's there, and people feel good when the president shows up and is supportive, and that's great. That's all he needed to do. But anyway. But I agree with you about the infrastructure being, this is not one off. In fact, there is a twin of that building that people are considering that moving away from, but moving out, because it was built by the same company, the same contractor, the same architect. And so it's like, there's no guarantee that it will not collapse in the same way.
Fernando, you're obviously familiar with Miami, and I am too, from more like going there for work often. And so I'll never forget, maybe 15 years ago? I don't think it was 20. I'm going to say 15 years ago, where there was this incredible influx of new construction, just between Brickell and all that, right? And buildings were just flying up. The biggest fear at that time was, will they fill the buildings?
Yeah.
No one was saying, will they remain standing? And the fact of the matter is, it's like so much went up, and it was almost like a race to get stuff done. And that's what I'm saying with infrastructure. I don't want to limit this to Miami or that horrific situation, but between bridges, roads, highways, construction, the fact of the matter is, I don't know that this economy has enough momentum going that can handle those sorts of losses without this infusion of improving infrastructure. I don't know that it does.
Yeah, that was in the 1990s, the one you're talking about. All of a sudden, a boom in building in Miami. Plenty of apartments available for a song and a dance. Anyway, that's also one part of the look. I agree with you about the potholes in Philadelphia, by the way.
Right.
It's impossible to drive around with that. But I think of Pennsylvania. At one point, there was a report, probably about a decade ago, about how crumbling the infrastructure was in Pennsylvania. There were 700 bridges that were in jeopardy, that showed decay. And so I don't know that they have done anything since then. I'm sure they have done some things, but not as a whole. They need to take this as and the whole, like saying every bridge needs to be inspected, refurbished, rebuilt, whatever. and I don't know if there's that commitment yet. But
Well,
that's
no
what we
one
need
has
to do.
said anything. And my thought is, if you're not saying anything, then nothing's going to be happening. There's not even talk. And that to me, like they don't do that stuff in secret. And that's the
Exactly.
problem. You'd know, we'd know.
But are we stuck right now? Because also we have a divided government in Pennsylvania. You know, the governor is a
Absolutely.
Democrat, the
Yep.
legislature is Republican, and they
Yeah.
do not want to cooperate in any way with Wolf, which is a big problem.
Mhm.
Um, it's like, I don't know, we sort of like to have an opposition, a loyal opposition,
Mhm.
because that's what our government is based on this bipartisan idea
Mhm.
that, you know, we cooperate to achieve certain goals,
Mhm.
but we approach them in different ways. Republicans are supposed to be more fiscally responsible, but they are not as socially aware as Democrats,
Mhm.
you know? And so Democrats are supposed to be the party that serves the people instead of business. That
Right.
has been the traditional
Mhm.
role. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's what has
Mhm.
happened.
And that's why bipartisan politics always works. To me, the biggest crime that's going on right now is this. If you had asked me, 5 years ago, maybe 10, I would have not as easily defined myself as, liberal. You know, I wouldn't. I would have, I'm Democratic. I have always been a Democrat, right? But I don't know that I would have been quite there. I feel like, to me, I'm probably slightly closer to moderate. The problem over the last several years, and it just keeps increasing, which is you got to take a stand. You've got the polarization of the news networks. You've got the polarization of the parties, which therefore means the polarization of the people, which means it's looked at as good, bad, right, wrong, not a collaborative, bipartisan effort. They're good. They're bad. They're right. They're wrong. Which one are you? Huh? Answer. And you're
Right.
like, oh.
Right.
And so that's the alarming part, which is why, to me, so little gets done now, because you've had sadly replaced that sense of, as you said, here's the two sides, here's their strengths and weaknesses. When they come together, they can do a lot of good because they're addressing fiscal, they're addressing social. Now it's, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. And that's, to me, what is horrific right now. The problem is that's a lot of words, and I, honest to God, don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to fix it right now.
Yeah. Well, when historians, and John Meacham is one of them, I really admire his writing.
Right.
When they look at recent presidents, they say they're all, whether they come from the left or from the right, they all govern from the center. The tendency for every president, as far as I know, recent, even from Reagan on. Reagan was obviously more to the right, but Clinton was more to the left. But those are the platforms they have. But when they govern, they try to govern from the middle. They try to serve the people, most of the people, which means you compromise. And that's why you need this bipartisan workshop. You need people to come across the aisle to help the other side pass legislation. That's what it's about. But we're not there right now. We're not with these people.
No, we're not even close. Here's a hope. You just said something, and something triggered in my head, which was it's a Hail Mary hope, which is, if after the midterms it is nothing goes back, nothing reverts, that, let's say, the midterms work out favorably the way I want to see them work out favorably, in terms of no reverting back to Trump or the Trump clowns, or that none of that happens.
Right.
I'm hoping that it then is a little bit more of a realization for those that are Republicans. It's like, oh, we don't have that crutch. That wasn't going to work. It didn't work in the general election. It didn't work in the midterms. There's no compelling reason to think it's going to work in 2024. We got to do something. it's a hope, and I mean it's a long shot hope, but that's why I really believe the midterms are so important, because you give them a glimmer of hope. You give them a glimmer of like, oh, we can go back there. Well, I'm not going to move. If I'm me, I'm not going to move. I'm waiting till 2024, and then we're going to get our orange fearless leader back, and everything's going to be great again. So I'm not moving a muscle. But when you strip that away, here's hoping, you know?
Well, John, yeah, here's hoping. I mean, I really, I agree with you. The only thing we have right now is hope.
Hope.
Because otherwise we will despair. Well, we're going to take another brief break here en Usa la Radio. Les habla Fernando Méndez. John Duffin nos acompaña en el día de hoy. En Dani Ramos, controlando la máquina digital. Regresamos en un momento. Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Méndez, host of the Roundtable. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news. Señores oyentes de Usa la Radio, les habla Fernando Méndez aquí desde la Mesa Redonda. John Duffin nos acompaña en el día de hoy. And Danny Ramos controlando la máquina digital. Well, John, guess what? 850,000 new jobs in the month of June. And that is a record for the recent months. So remember when Trump said, if I'm not around, the economy will collapse.
So here's the fun part of this, right? Wages are going up. And that's the other part that makes this great. So there was also that stigma. We can't raise wages. We don't have it. You can't do it. No one wants to go to work. So no one wants to take a job. So wages are going up. You've got a ton of new jobs and with unemployment benefits ending and jobs available.
Right.
I think there's a lot of good here that's going to be going on.
An astonishing number. 9 million jobs are open right now. 9 million.
Well, and it is, look, I treat this almost as if, I'm not saying I get it, but the fact of the matter is, look, there was money to be taken. People took it. It's summer. It's COVID. It's this. It's that. But I strongly suspect that when those benefits end, the unemployment benefits, the special provisions end, and what have you, well, people are going to go back to work. They're not going to sit and starve. And when you have this many jobs open, I really believe it's a great, good sign, because come fall, I think it's going to be, I think it's going to keep going. And the fact is, already added close to 900,000 in June. To me, it's fabulous. It's fabulous.
You know, we have gone most of this program without mentioning COVID-19.
Ain't that great? You brought up even talking about 4th of July, the biggest holiday and all that stuff. And I was even thinking about last year. I was thinking about last year in that sense of what 4th of July was like last year. And, you know, I mean, look, empty streets, barren restaurants, blah, blah, blah. And this is Philadelphia specifically, where Welcome America was prominent and all that sort of thing, and nothing was going on. Just the fact that even something like Welcome America, which is just, you know, an indicator that of some degree of normalcy. If I didn't realize until yesterday that they're doing the fireworks thing. I didn't know that. Right. So that's a big deal in terms of normalcy. And it's like, so it's just to think of what changed in a year, right? So COVID. I live in a high rise. You know the high rise. And the fact of the matter is, you know it well. And the fact of the matter is, I believe now the mask policy is done. I you know, we're not wearing a mask in the lobby. I still see a sign in the elevator, but otherwise, I think that's done. And so, what's weird is I still carry a mask. Right? I still carry a mask. I'm still a little skittish of keeping it off all the time.
Yeah.
I'm still a little weird with kind of putting it on, kind of taking it off, kind of, but what's really the freedom,
nice.
it's the freedom. It's strictly the freedom. And that's
freedom.
Why,
exactly.
That's all. You're talking about freedom. You're talking about a national holiday that commemorates freedom and that deep appreciation that I can go out, rain notwithstanding, I can go out, I could check out the Parkway. I don't need to be with 500,000 people watching fireworks. That was never my thing. But the fact of the matter is just that it's available. It's
Joe
great.
Biden promised freedom by July 4th.
How about that, right?
Yeah. And so here we are. In essence, we are. I mean, we haven't reached the numbers that we would like to have, but we are. It's great progress from a year ago.
Oh, for God's sake! And the goals were aggressive.
Yeah.
And I don't mind missing on aggressive goals. And I really believe you and I both know why those numbers aren't higher. It's non-compliance. Non-compliance is different than lack of availability, lack of vaccine. This is strictly, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I can't fix you for that. But that sense of, that the sense of free, we got what was promised, was this sense of freedom. As I said, I'm almost still in disbelief of how things have changed. I've flown a couple times, which has been, you're still wearing a mask on the plane, but the fact of the matter is just that you could fly at all, it's been great.
Yeah, I can see a mask on a plane because you are in close.
You're right. Right, exactly.
But John, I don't know how you're going to be swimming with a mask on.
I haven't figured that out yet either. And so
anyway.
All I know is it doesn't look terribly good, mask or no mask. So I tend to swim in private.
Anyway, as we mentioned, this whole economy is picking up. But now the concern, and we will start hearing this now, it will be about inflation, because the price of cars is already up.
Yep.
The housing market is insane. People are paying extra money because they want to buy a house right now, because people think real estate is a great investment, which it is. And so the market is going to go crazy.
Gasoline prices are insane. I drive a tiny little car. The car. I drive that same tiny little car, and I spent filling the tank 2 days ago. What I would envision people with SUVs. You know what I mean? I know that's real. I know it. Highest gas prices since 2014. I know that's a concern, and so I don't discount that or ignore it. I believe it is something that needs to be addressed. The only thing that I think about, it doesn't justify it, but my thought is, with all of the spending that has taken place, to get people out of these horrific emergency situations over the last year and a half, a lot of money has been spent. And I think, in a way, the prices and inflation rising have at least an indirect result to do with that kind of spending. But I don't believe that spending was reckless at all. It was extremely necessary. And I think this is a price, but it's an eye-opener right now. You got to be paying attention. You've got to be hoping that there's some sort of a plan that's not going to allow, even just something as simple as gas prices to keep spiraling, because then your flights are going to be stupid expensive, and then people will be skittish traveling.
Absolutely. I want to bring back something I mentioned at the beginning. There's a new book by Roger Bennett. This is a good July 4th reading. The title of the book is Reborn in the USA, an Englishman's love letter to his chosen home. I recommend that book. Anyway, he's a very enthusiastic writer. So, we have almost nothing left now except wish
America
a happy birthday. No.
That's my pleasure to do that.
Yeah.
I feel great about the way that things are going. Happy 4th, Fernando, to you and to you, Ellen, the family. Like I said again, I wish you a great 4th of July.
Same here. And happy birthday to America. And thank you to you, John, for joining us today.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful.
Señores oyentes, muchas gracias por su sintonía en el día de hoy. Se despide Fernando Méndez, Dani Ramos controlando la máquina digital. Nos acompañó John Duffin. Los esperamos a ustedes. Hasta la próxima. Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Méndez, host of the Roundtable. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news.